All right, so let's call this meeting to order. I think we have a quorum. Two of us are here.
No, technically you don't have a quorum, but that's okay. We can have an informational meeting.
Well, there are only four of us, so.
You have to have a majority.
So if Jan calls in, we'll have a quorum.
Yes.
Okay. We'll sit taller in your chair and then we'll have a.
I'll sit too.
Yeah. Anyway, we will have an informational meeting simply because we can't even vote on the minutes right now.
We can't vote on the minutes, okay. but since some of our property owners are expecting us to have a meeting, yes, we can have an informational, and the board members that are, committee members that are not present can view the video. We're not anticipating voting on anything this meeting anyways.
Exactly.
So
we're just going to pick up where we left off. This is a long process on this particular thing we're doing. And where did we leave off last time?
So we completed up on the declaration, we completed up to Article 2, Section 2.
Okay.
So on the screen I have Article 2, Section 3 to take it back up. And I do apologize for not being here last month, but I had the god-awful flu at that time. So I have to, honestly, I have to refresh myself to every section that we go through. So this section, keeping in mind, if this is the first time you've viewed the rules and regs, or if you missed last month's, please go back to last month's. Or you can even go back too, because we did the same things with the Articles of Incorporation, where we've included notes to change these documents, the Articles of Incorporation and the Declaration, are really near impossible. So we've taken a note approach where it explains the language, because this documentation was created in 1965 by lawyers for lawyers, and it's just really hard to understand in some cases. So what we've done is, you know, with all the decades of history and the court rulings and precedents and everything, we've interpreted these and included notes to make it easier for the average person to be able to understand what is meant by certain sections. So,
okay, so
for this section further clarifies that only the developer, which in this case is Cooper, its successor, if they were to sell, and assigned, if they were to do that, shall have the declarative right to add additional lands and properties to the POA. So over time, and they're doing this right, you know, right now, is there's certain sections that have been added to our community that the developer has added, and so over time we can get bigger, but only the developer has this right. This is we call it a declarative right. And that is one of their rights. So if someone wants to attach to the POA and become part of the POA and start paying POA dues and so forth, they can do that. They have that right to add to our community. Any questions?
Just the developer, not an individual person.
Just the developer. And what I term it as the big D developer, as in the developer, yes, which is Cooper. Not small D developer, which is, you know, a company that builds a couple homes here and there, spec homes and so forth. I'm calling that a small D developer. This is the capital B, or big D developer.
It's not big D Dallas, it's big D developer.
Does it have to be developed as in housing, or can it just be land? Normally they wouldn't just do land. I mean, they would do it for a reason.
They could do just land, but normally, yes, you're correct. It becomes part of the POA, and so keep in mind, if it is not part of the POA, we can't provide water to it.
Right.
And so what normally happens is they'll dedicate a portion, and then they'll start building homes in that area. And once the property is sold, then they have to start paying assessments at that time.
Gotcha. So once it's plotted and zoned?
Once it's sold, it depends. It depends on when it is transferred in ownership.
Gotcha.
That's when paid. And unfortunately, Doug McCash, our general counsel, could not make it today. He is under the weather.
Okay.
So some of those really ticky-tacky questions, if you want to ask them again next time, great.
Okay.
All right, now we're on to Article 3, Section 1 about membership. And the notes reads, throughout this document there are references to lots and living units, also commonly referred to as unimproved and improved. The rights of lots and living units are the same. The only exception is the annual assessments charged are different. So people will say, well, do I have more rights as a person that has a home compared to someone that has an unimproved lot? No, you have the exact same. So an unimproved property owner gets 1 vote, an improved, someone that has a home on it, they get 1 vote per lot.
Yes.
No difference. The only difference, and this was substantiated by a court case 20 some odd years ago, is that the assessment fees are less for unimproved than improved. And in our further documentation in our policies, we described improved as one that has a water meter.
Gotcha.
There's more information to it than that. Read the policy. But basically, when you have a water meter, that becomes an improved property.
Okay.
All right.
That one looks good.
So voting rights, we updated this to add a little bit more clarity since last month. So a lot or living unit that are in good standing, you'll see that we've underlined, that's been an update since last month, have 1 vote per lot or living unit. If there are multiple owners of a lot or living unit, they must determine amongst themselves how to cast. Members in good standing shall mean one whose assessments and or fees to the association are no more than 90 days past due. So good standing is clarified in the policies and actually has been substantiated by a court case. And then we do have situations, we have a lot of situations where multiple people own a lot, improved, unimproved, lot or living unit, and we don't get in the middle. This is basically, this section says, you guys figure it out.
Yeah, 1 vote.
1 vote. So if 2 people own it and they disagree, that's your issue. You guys figure it out. And that's what this says.
Okay.
And then we have a point in here, Class A members encompass the bulk of the approximately 39,000 lots and living units in Bella Vista. As of November 23, there are approximately 16,000 living units and 23,000 unimproved. Whether a member owns an unimproved or a lot or a living unit, they are still afforded the same rights. So we just wanted to add some clarity. So we put in, 39,000. It's approximately, I think we're at like 39,100, something like that. But it does change because remember the first section we talk about adding additional.
Yep.
That happens, and so that's why that number slowly goes up over time, but it doesn't jump up. And that's why we included the November of 2023. So if we don't update this for 4 or 5 years, someone might see, well, we're at 16,000. Well, 2 or 3 years from now, we might be at 17,000. So that's why we have the date in there. But they're afforded the same rights.
Okay.
Then Class B, so Class B lots are only owned by Big D developer. Okay, so they have different rights. Now, Class B they can't vote for the board of directors. Okay, so if they have a Class B vote, that can be used towards an assessment increase, but it cannot be used towards voting for the board of directors.
Okay.
All right. As of the last vote, Class B lots, there are only 5. There's only 5 Class B lots still out there.
Oh.
Yeah. So now what happens sometimes into the next section, you'll see that Class B votes, Okay, so regarding voting to increase assessments or special assessments, Class A and B votes are counted separately during the voting process. In other words, while Class B votes are entitled to 10 votes per lot, and Class A votes are only entitled to 1 vote, the Class B votes are counted separately from Class A. So what ends up happening, so let's say we're voting for an assessment increase. Okay, and we have 2 requirements. You must get over 50% to reach quorum. There's further rules if you go for a second vote, but 50%. And of those who vote, 51% must vote in the affirmative. That is for Class A and Class B. Okay, so it's almost like you have 2 gates that you need to get through, quorum and vote on the A side, and 2 gates you have to get through on the B side. But these do not intermix. They are kept separate. So what has happened sometimes is property owners will read it and say, they get 10 votes on Class B. Well, so the 5 Class B lots get 10 votes apiece. And they're over here, counted separately. And then here are all the other Class A that are in good standing, 37,000 votes usually, as of the most recent one. Those are not intermixed, okay? To get an assessment vote, you need to get it on both sides.
Yes.
So what I say is, when people come to me and say, can Cooper force an assessment down the throats of the membership? No, they can, because they only control the one side. They only have Class B votes. They do have some Class A votes, but they only get 1 vote per. Okay. They can't force it down, but they could effectively veto it. Meaning, let's say on the Class A side, the membership votes 55%. We want an assessment increase. On the B side, if Cooper says no, we are against it, then the proposal fails.
Because they haven't met the quorum and they haven't met.
Well, maybe they meet the quorum because they
sorry.
voted all 5,
Right.
but they voted against it.
Right.
So it has to be approved by
part.
both sides.
I
So
gotcha.
they can't force it down the throats of the membership, but they could veto it.
You know, it's really hard for me and probably for other people to understand why there's even a Class B. I mean, I know there was a good reason, or a reason.
That might be a great question to ask Doug when he's back next month.
Okay.
But
It's a curiosity question. It's there. We got to deal with it, but.
Yeah, it won't change.
No.
So this the next one is kind of a superfluous. And then associate members, we've covered those before, but there are few, if any, that remain. I actually don't think there are any remaining, and this really dates back to what we call as the early developmental years of the POA, when you could basically buy your home or your lot on installment, and you were given associate member rights to the POA, even though you didn't fully own it.
Okay.
So those were we've never, Doug and I haven't seen an associate member ever, and Doug's been here longer than me. Chances are the last associate members probably went away 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know for certain, but it's still in there.
Yep.
You know, it's possible that the Big D developer could do that in the future. Okay, so the next one is utility easements. This is a very exciting section. This section, which is section 1 of Article 4, this section is the developer is making their rights clear with regards to the utility easements. So just read that section. It's not the most important, you know.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
It's one of their rights. It's we call it a declarative right. There's certain rights that are afforded in this document that are afforded to them, and that's the way it is.
Okay.
I also think to take a step back, I'm sure you covered it last month, but making sure that everybody understands that this document is the founding document for the POA, the ACC, and the Townhouse Association.
Yes.
So it's the same one document created all. So when property owners go through these documents, they got to make sure they know which entity they're talking about. So at times we'll have a property owner come in and say, well, the declaration says you need to take care of that. And I'll go, that's the ACC's. But it's in the declaration. Yes, it is. But that declaration created 3 different entities, not just the POA. So we're hoping this note section will help clarify that.
Yes.
All right, Article 4, Section 1 talks about reserved properties. The developer has the right to designate certain properties they own as
Article
reserved.
4? You mean 5?
Sorry, 5. I'm sorry, Article 5. In many instances, reserved properties are areas the developer designated for future development. It is the developer's sole right to determine when the reserved properties will be developed and how reserved properties will be developed. The developer must comply with all applicable state and local ordinances. So let's say they go in, they say, well, we want to bring this piece of property into the POA, but we're going to make it reserved. They're not going to pay any assessments on that. It's just part of the POA. And then over time, then they'll say, okay, now we're going to subdivide that. We're going to create lots and so forth. So similar to up on Gordon Hollow.
Yes.
You know, so they're subdividing that area,
Yes.
and so I'm not certain if that area. I think that area was reserved. I might be wrong on that.
I was going to ask you about that particular property.
But they subdivided that area now, and then now when they sell that and someone purchases it, now they start paying assessments at that point.
So even if just one house sells, they immediately come in. They don't have to wait until the whole.
Nope. It's one at a time.
When they sell it.
When they sell it, and you can't go backwards. Okay, so this is part of the policy. So once the lot becomes, a dues paying, an assessment paying lot, it can't go backwards and be unpaying. I'm sure there was a better way of phrasing that. I'm sure my high school English teacher would be rather disappointed in me, but so that's how that works.
Makes sense.
So the next portion is referencing the water utility. So every once in a while, people will come to us and say, well, why does the POA run the water utility? Has it always been that way? The answer is yes. Since the creation of the POA in 1965, it was the intent to have the POA own and operate the water system. From day one, that was always the intent. And quite frankly, I think we do a really good job. Yes. And I think that we were able to run this utility at a very efficient manner to keep the rates reasonable.
So just a point of clarification, because my mind always kind of goes there. The majority of the folks in Bella Vista have POA water.
So everybody within the association, within the POA, has POA water. There are other water utilities within the city of Bella Vista. Yes. Most of them are smaller, like Old Bella Vista has one in the center of the community. I can't remember the name. They're all relatively small ones. Yes. That are not part of the POA. Yes,
that's what I wanted to just make clear to the public.
So you can be in the city and have, and then we have some people that have well water.
I know.
So they're not part of a system at all.
But not many.
No, not many. Not many. No.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so this section is talking about utilities, and so we've included this note. The developer no longer provides any utilities within Bella Vista. The water system is owned by the POA. Wastewater, village wastewater provides sewer to certain areas. So remember, this document was created back in '65 when they were first creating the community, and, you know, they had to do everything at that time. Well, no longer. You know, we have Village Wastewater, we have Carroll Electric, AT&T, Cox, and everything else. And so the developer is not in the utility business anymore, and it hasn't been for decades. Or at least not to my knowledge. There are.
I'm really glad this is going in here, mentioning these other utilities.
Yeah, and it does, believe me, it gets confusing. All right, so the next one is we're going to look at Article 6, Section 1, the water system. So note the POA is the owner operator of the water system. The board of directors and the POA has the sole authority to fix prices for the water system, although there are certain state laws, key word there, key term there, the POA must adhere to regarding the water system. From the onset, it was established that the water system would be owned and operated by the POA. So we still have laws. We can't go crazy with our rates or anything like that. And once again, I think we do a really good job.
I think it's a piece of interesting information here that we as board members actually have to have training.
Yep.
We have to 8 hours worth of training on water board.
Absolutely.
Not water board as in hurting people.
Yeah. Well, and you had to take an exam, which I'm
Yes.
frankly shocked that Jason passed.
I know. It took me a couple times.
It was interesting though, it really
Yeah.
was.
The developer, successors, and assigned have the declarative right to determine when the water system shall be extended. So while the POA owns and operates the water system, the POA does not have the legal authority to refuse developers' right to extend the water system. Likewise, the POA does not have the legal authority to expand the water system without approval of the developer. So I wrote this for a specific instance. So if you recall, a couple years ago, someone was looking at potentially putting in an apartment complex up by the Boys and Girls Club.
Yes.
Okay, and there was a lot of hubbub in the community. Now that land currently is not subjected, it's not part of the POA, okay? But there was conversations that they may try and talk to Cooper and become part of the POA. And some people came to the POA and said, well, you need to refuse to not give, you can't give them water. We don't want an apartment complex there, you're gonna have to refuse.
You can't do that.
Well, ignoring the whole issue of whether we should or shouldn't have an apartment complex, I'm not going to touch that.
Right.
But if it's part of the POA, we have to give water.
Exactly.
End of story. That is like an easy court win if we try to deny them water. I mean, that's just like an easy court win.
I thought that land was in Hiwassee.
Correct, but it can be. It doesn't. We can be inside or outside of Bella Vista.
Okay.
And we can be inside or outside of a neighboring community.
Okay.
Yep, it hasn't happened yet, but it could.
Okay.
It could, because there's portions of Bella Vista, the city, that are not part of the POA, and there's portions of the POA, like Bella Vista Heights, they're part of the association, but they're not part of the city.
And to confuse it even more, there are parts of the county that are run through the Bella Vista Planning Commission.
And on top of that, we have 3 school districts that divide Bella Vista, the city.
3?
3.
Oh, Pea Ridge.
Pea Ridge on the far east corner, there's a little section. So yeah, there's all sorts of confusing stuff.
For Christmas, I really wanted Santa to bring me overlays. Where you start with Bella Vista, and then you have an overlay that's the POA, and then you have an overlay that's the city, because it's just
But
ridiculous.
you got me and my high quality jokes that go, I can explain it to you.
She said.
Next year, I want the overlays, okay?
And then we just covered this. Throughout
Yes.
Bella Vista, there are properties that lie within the city of Bella Vista, but
Yes.
not all that stuff. So
Right.
roads and streets. Okay, so here's another one where people will come to us and say, you need to take a POA, you need to take care of my road. I looked at the declaration. You're responsible for taking care of the roads. Well, back in 2007, we created the city of Bella Vista. And they took over all the roads.
Yep. Well, not all. Don't we have a
There's
few?
a couple, really, literally a couple.
Oh, okay.
Bella Vista Heights, we referenced them. They're not. They're in the POA, but they're not in the city.
Okay.
And we maintain their roads and
Okay.
so forth. So, and there's a couple others here and there for whatever goofy reason that the POA takes care of, but the vast majority, 99%. Of the roads in Bella Vista are taken care of by the city.
Yep.
And they're responsible for that. Okay, lakes, section 3, lakes, golf courses, so forth. During the founding and early expansion of Bella Vista, the developer would pay for the initial cost to construct a new amenity, for example, a new golf course or lake. Upon completion of the new amenity, the developer would transfer ownership of the amenity and ongoing maintenance, capital, taxes, blah, 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 to the POA. To pay for the ongoing maintenance and other expenses of the new amenity, the POA will utilize a combination of funds from assessments and proceeds from amenity usage fees. The developer is not obligated to develop new amenities for the POA and has not done so in many years. Probably could have crossed that out and put in decades. Okay, so when they were creating the community, you know, they created golf course and lakes to entice people to buy land. Mm-hmm. Well, they've sold everything. So they have really no motivation to add additional, they have no financial motivation to add additional amenities to the POA. And they haven't done it, to my knowledge, in a really long time. Even with these smaller, you know, the developments that they're doing now are relatively small, you know, 20, 30 homes, that kind of stuff. That's drop in the bucket. Okay. But this section also stipulates that the POA, we can charge amenity usage fees, we can use assessments to take care of the amenities, which is what we do. That's really the essence of the POA right there.
Exactly.
Okay. Article 7, plan for construction. You'll notice in section 1 we didn't even, actually the description there is pretty good, so we didn't include anything. In section 2, Bella Vista Townhouse Association has the right to collect assessments, and the failure to pay constitute a lien against the property. So once again, keep in mind, this document is for 3 different entities, and we're not going to get and trample on the rights of the ACC or the Townhouse Association, or anything like that. So Article 8, Section 1 is members and associates easement of enjoyment. Note, members have the right to use and enjoy the use and enjoyment of the amenities regardless of whether the individual property owner chooses to utilize the amenities or not. Really important there.
Yes.
This right to use and enjoy the amenities is tied to the member's ownership of a lot or living unit. If a member were to sell their lot or living unit, the right to use and enjoy the amenities would transfer to the new member. So people will come to me sometimes and they'll say, well, I don't play golf. Why should I pay assessments? I don't use the lakes. I don't use the trails. I don't. But, you know, at the very beginning, I wasn't here last month, but on the first page of the declaration, it establishes that Bella Vista is an amenities-rich community. That's what we are.
Yep.
And whether you use the amenities or not, your assessments, we're going to charge you assessments because we're an amenities-based community.
And it's not exactly the same, but it kind of is like, you know, I don't have any kids in school, but I still pay school taxes. So, you know, it's part of living.
I distinctly remember having a conversation with a property owner that was upset about the assessments and made it very clear that they didn't play golf, they didn't use the lakes, and then at some point I said, "Was it always that way? Did you play golf previously?" "Oh yeah, I used to play golf 5 days a week."
Yeah.
There you go. So if you move here, recognize this document is telling you, this is a public document, it's available on our website, you can get it from the county, and also it's making it very clear
Yep.
that we are an amenities-based community, and whether you're going to use the amenities or not, you got to pay for them.
Okay.
The next section 2 is the POA is the deeded owner of common property. Pretty straightforward there. Section 3. Note the POA has the right to borrow funds to construct, improve, or maintain common property. For example, the POA entered into a loan in 2022 to fund the renovation of the Bella Vista Recreation Center. We have the authority.
Okay.
The POA has the authority to suspend members for an infraction for up to 30 days. During a suspension, the member's privileges, the member is prohibited from using any POA amenity. POA is not allowed to fine members. So this is a challenging one for us because sometimes, well, sometimes, in most cases, a 30-day suspension is enough to get the member's attention, which is good, because in most cases, the infraction is relatively minor and the 30-day suspension is just enough to get their attention. Unfortunately, we have had situations where we wish we could do it for significantly longer than 30 days. And we have had some pretty egregious situations. Fortunately, we can't. We have talked in some cases about, taking legal action against the person, but we haven't had to do that.
Right.
The other thing here is the POA is not allowed to fine, which is, a lot of communities do have the ability to fine, and I wish we did have this ability. Not that we would go crazy on it, but there's people will speed on the lakes, and we can pull them over and politely ask them to not do it again. We can, if they're a repeat offender, we might suspend their privileges, but if we had a fine, just like any other speeding ticket, gets your attention, and then you start slowing down the next time. Fortunately, we don't have that right.
Okay.
Did they not? I was here back then, but I wasn't necessarily driving. I don't ever remember, did the when before the city incorporation, when it was all
I don't know.
Did the police ever write tickets? I wonder.
I don't know.
I don't ever remember.
Were they an adjunct of the county or
Yeah,
something
they
like
were.
that? Weren't
No,
they
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd say probably yes.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
they had they were paid by the POA, but they were
Right.
adjunct or something like
Just
that.
goes,
Yes.
I was a good kid when I never
Or
got
didn't get caught.
Or didn't get caught.
But the fining thing too, to your other point about, egregious 30 days can be a little harsh for a minor, something that somebody needs their attention, but $100 would go a long way too.
Yeah, well, and sometimes we do 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We try and match.
The time with the crime, so to speak.
Yeah. But unfortunately, my last community, we had a lot more flexibility, and we had a couple truly egregious situations where we suspended, in one case, a person a year, but it was 100% justified.
Right.
We can't do that
Okay.
here. Next one, the POA has the right to charge reasonable amenity usage fees. For example, the POA can charge members green fees for golf, boat registration fees for lake usage, etc. So this provision gives us the authority to do that. So the next section is kind of an interesting situation. Currently doesn't apply to us. We've never done it, thought about doing this, but you can basically create a club within the club, if you want to call it that. So at Hot Springs Village, they provide a good example of the meaning behind this paragraph. Hot Springs Village was created by Cooper Communities. They were created 5 years after us. They have fairly similar governance to us. In Hot Springs Village, they created a private club within the membership. This private club provides separate benefits to the private club's membership, with the authority to charge additional dues and create rules and regulations. So this is Diamato, right? Did I say that right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. It's their private club, so it's a club within the club. Interesting concept. I'm sure this section of the declaration is identical for Hot Springs Village. They elected to do this. We've never elected to do that, but we could.
Yeah.
I don't think we would.
No.
No.
Yeah.
The POA limits who can enjoy membership privileges to just 2 designated members per lot or living unit. This limit of 2 designated members is in place to prohibit a member from designating an unreasonably high number of individuals who can enjoy membership privileges for a single lot. So it's reasonable, it holds up, but you definitely don't want a situation where a person designates 50 people. Then it kind of kills the whole idea behind the word membership.
You know, how do they, I'm sorry.
No, but
How do they handle, a curiosity question only, you said earlier that there are some lots that they have multiple owners. What do they do? Just decide who?
They got to figure it out.
Just,
If it's 2 owners, then that's easy. But
Easy.
we do have situations where a lot of people, you know, in some cases it might be a family trust, and I've seen situations where like 6 kids own it. Well, you pick 2.
gotcha, okay.
And go from there. Now the other ones, they can give guest passes to the other ones, but you're only going to get 2, because
Okay.
what we want to make sure we don't. You could legally purchase a lot and have it owned by 50 different people. Legally, you can do that, at least to my knowledge. Well, you don't want to have 50 members. That's killing the whole idea.
Exactly, okay.
Yeah, then we have people potentially selling memberships. You know, hey, I'll add you to my deed, and I'll sell you a membership, and trying to undercut or something like that.
And this does not pertain to dependents, because dependents are not considered true member. It's who is on the deed.
Yes.
The name on deed.
Correct. During the development years of the POA, the developer, Big D developer, would utilize common properties and amenities to market the sale of lots. The developer has not exercised this right in a long time, so they could do those types of things.
Okay.
No, for the POA to
Like a
dedicate.
model home or something? Is that what that means, or what?
Utilize common property and amenities. Well, no,
common.
they would give free green fees. Come on down for the weekend.
gotcha.
You use our pools, use the lakes, everything. We'll give you all free. Come on down and then buy a lot down here. So
Gotcha.
they did that for.
In the early days? Yeah,
They did that for decades. That was their main, they sent out postcards all over the Midwest and everything. It was a very successful marketing campaign. All right, next one. For the POA to dedicate or transfer common property to any public agency, authority, utility requires a vote of the entire membership by 51%. Not easy to sell a lot. Not easy to sell one. I guarantee you the membership will vote that down.
yeah.
Parking rights. The ACC has governance over such issues. Enough said. I don't want to get into the parking issues, the parking rights. Next one is, note, limited common property are managed by the Townhouse Association. So we have, the POA has common property, okay, and common property is for common use. So like the trails are on common property, and the golf courses are on common property, and so forth. And so that's for the use of all members. So Jason lives on the west side, but he wants to play on one of our golf courses on the east side. It's common property, he's allowed to do that. Limited common property is for the Townhouse Association. So they have similar rights isolated to just the owners within the townhouse association. So they have some docks. They used to have tennis courts. They may have one tennis. I don't think they used to have pools and tennis courts within the townhouse association. They've gotten rid of most of them because they've probably figured out it's really expensive and our pools are really good.
Yeah.
But if they had a pool, that pool would be limited to being used by just the townhouse association members, not the greater population. Okay, so that's limited common property.
Okay.
So a little bit different there.
Yep.
All right, looks like we're on Article 10. Okay, assessments are considered lien against the property if assessments are not paid. No additional filing of a lien against the property is required, whether a buyer has been notified or not notified of the obligation to pay assessments, and whether they have been notified or not notified the property is part of the POA. They are obligated to pay the assessments and a part of the POA. So we don't have to file a lien. It's already automatic. Okay, they don't have to do anything additional. That's important. So if a person is not paying their assessments, we don't, it's still owed. And then we get every once in a while, and remember when we were creating these notes, I was racking my brain for all the emails that I've received over the years, and people would say, well, I bought the home, but I didn't know you were part of the association, so I don't want to be part of the association. No. Well, I didn't know that the previous owner owed assessments. That's not my fault. I don't own it. That's why you hire a title company.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
may sound callous, but that's why you hire our title company.
Exactly.
So this establishes those rights. So when you buy property, you better know what you're buying. Really. Purpose of assessment. This paragraph uses broad language to describe the purpose and an acceptable use of assessments. And this paragraph was actually fairly well written.
Mm-hmm.
How are we doing? We're doing pretty good.
We're doing great. I'm watching the time.
Okay. All right. Next one. Basis. So prior to 1970, assessments were $5 a month or $60 a year. Pretty good deal way back then. Inflation. In accordance with the voting requirements of the membership to increase assessments, the assessments have been raised numerous times since the founding of the POA. As of March 1st, 23, the assessments for living units are $40 and for unimproved lots are $16 per month. If the membership approves an increase in the assessments may not increase for a period of 3 years. Okay, so once it's approved, there's a 3-year moratorium. We can't go ask the membership for an increase every year. Boom, boom, we can't do that. You have to wait. This 3-year moratorium applies only in the event of a successful assessment vote. Mm-hmm. If the membership rejects a proposed increase in assessments, the 3-year moratorium does not apply, and a subsequent vote to seek an increase in assessments within the 3 years would be allowed. The documents even contemplate that if you don't hit the 50% quorum, if you go out immediately within 90 days for a second vote, it drops down to 25%. Mm-hmm. So clearly, the governing documents are saying, yes, if you fail, you can go out again. In previous years, we had failures and people were like, oh, you can't go out for 3 years. No, because it didn't succeed. Once it succeeds, then you have to wait 3 years.
Yes.
And that's what happened in 2020.
Yep.
We got the approval, and then we had to wait 3 years, and then 23 we got the approval, and chances are in 26 we'll try again, because you have to wait 3 years.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so this one is a little bit concerning here, is talking about lowering assessments. And so we've made it very clear that this is a challenging situation. So while possible, the lowering of assessments would not likely be practical. It would be critical for the board of directors to have a full understanding of the future needs of the POA before contemplating lowering assessments. Since determining the future needs of the POA can be highly unpredictable, the board of directors would need to proceed with extreme caution to meet their fiduciary responsibilities. Fiduciary responsibility, that's the key term. You start lowering the assessments recklessly, you're not fulfilling your fiduciary responsibilities. Given the ever-increasing impact of inflation, it is doubtful the board of directors would vote to decrease assessments. If the board of directors were to vote to decrease assessments, such vote would be effective for only 1 year. The assessments automatically increasing to previous levels in the next year. Assessments would increase back to the previous level approved by the membership without an additional vote of the membership. So if it went down for 1 year, it goes right back up, and you don't have to have a vote of the membership. Makes it very clear there. But this is, you know, inflation, that's really got to be careful. The POA, the next section, section 4 on capital improvements. The POA has the right to hold a vote of the membership to approve a special assessment. If approved, the membership, by the membership, a special assessment would be in place for a single year compared to an annual assessment increase, which would carry forward into the future. So you could, the board could have the option, instead of doing a blanket assessment, so we did in 2020, we did $13, and 23 we did $3. You could say, hey, we're gonna build a brand new golf course.
Widget.
Brand new fitness center, whatever. We're gonna bring, and it's gonna cost us X number of dollars, and we've calculated it out, and it's going to be a $5 increase per month, and it's only in place for 1 year. And we're going to use all those funds for that new golf course, that new widget, that new, you could do that. You could do that. The board has taken the approach that it's hard enough to get an assessment increase, we might as well just have it carry forward as opposed to just for 1 year. But you have that at your disposal.
Okay.
Okay. So change in basis of maximum of annual assessments. So note, at least 51% of Class A and Class B members in good standing must vote in favor, assent for a proposed increase in assessments to be approved. Since the requirement to pass 51% in favor, a vote in favor of increasing assessments could obtain more than 50% of the votes and still be unsuccessful. Since the requirement to pass is 51% in favor,
You can have 50% of the vote, but only 49% in favor.
I'm going to blame that wording on Doug and not me.
That's
He's
kind
not
of,
here to defend himself.
Yeah,
It
that's
might have been me.
it needs to be.
There are also quorum requirements. I'll mark that down. That's a little, it's accurate when I read it the second time, but
It's still a little lawyerly.
it's a little clunky. Hey, Jessica, can you mark that one down?
Is that article in 11, Tim?
That's Article 5, that's Section 5 in Article 9.
Oh, my bad, okay.
Okay, another one is, if the board determines that an increase in assessment is warranted, the board, within reason, is allowed to endorse, promote a vote to increase the assessments. Additionally, the board can direct management team of the POA to endorse and promote an increase. And then, you know, it's if the board is saying we're gonna go for this vote, it would be, yes, they're gonna support it. You know.
Okay.
Quorum. Okay, this is talk for a special assessment or annual assessment vote. There is a quorum requirement of 50% for members in good standing. The quorum requirement can be a significant threshold given the size of the membership. In recent history, the annual assessment votes have either narrowly missed or narrowly exceeded the 50% quorum requirement. If the 50% threshold is not met, the quorum requirement is reduced to 25% in a subsequent vote, provided the vote is taken within 90 days. The provisions of the subsequent vote to be taken within 90 days further emphasize that a subsequent vote can be taken following the failure of an initial vote. Yep. So we're really, I'm trying to address issues that have come up, questions and so forth.
Yep.
How can you take multiple votes? Well, this is why. Date of commencement and so forth. The most recent increase in assessment approved by the membership went into effect March 1st, 23. Let's see where we're at.
You know, I'm not sure, but we're at 2:20 right now. I was
Go to
hoping,
8.
Let's go to 8.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
well, that's what I was thinking. I was hoping to get through this particular one,
All right,
but we're
we'll
not going to, so.
We'll get through this one and then we'll stop just before duties of board directors.
Okay,
All right.
that sounds good.
Note, after the first annual assessments were paid, subsequent assessments have historically been due on January 1st each year. Although the board of directors has the authority to change the annual date in January, the assessments become due. While the annual assessments may be paid in one lump sum, the POA also allows monthly installments of the annual assessments as provided in this section. This one's pretty straightforward and clear there.
Yep.
Note, if lots are added to the POA in the middle of the year, those lots are not subject to a full year of assessments. Only that portion of the assessment appropriate proportional to the number of months which are part of the POA, which they are part of the POA. So if they're there for 6 months, they pay for 6 months.
Yep.
Special assessments are paid in the same manner as regular annual assessments. So I think that's a good stopping point.
Yes, absolutely.
Hey, Jessica, please mark section 7. There's a capitalization in the one of the paragraphs. The note, if lots are added to the POA, the should be
lots.
capitalized.
Yes, right.
So, so you get those two corrections that we're going to make? Okay, good.
That was actually Article 10, Jessica, not 9.
Oh,
10,
I wonder,
yeah.
it's in 10, okay,
yeah,
thank you.
10.5 and 10.
One. Okay.
Both of them, both of these are in that same article.
thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so in that case.
So that's a lot. So we've made.
We've heard Tom talk enough.
I resemble that remark.
Well,
Scott, you see how they treat me on here? What the hell?
Too easy. I feel so sorry for it. This is how I feel when you treat me. So I'm just saying. I was gonna say this.
okay, so this was just an informational meeting because there are just the two of us here today. So we'll take this up again on February the 8th, I believe, is the next time we do this.
Yes, it is February 8th.
And if there's no other, if you don't want to talk anymore.
And we'll get those changes made by the next meeting.
Excellent. So adjourned.